welcome. I think that everyone signed something to be in the presence of Baron Dave Walters. Or, um, how are you?
Great. Yeah. How are you? Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Very, very good. Yeah. Thanks for allowing for this interview. We are really excited. We are all jittery with interviewing you. Yeah. Um, so we we had to trickle down some things because you have so much so much you are doing, so many projects. But I think that since you are so much involved in the tabletop RPG community, one of
Mhm.
the first questions to be made is, what was your first experience in in tabletop?
I have to apologize. This computer that is over here started like talking to me in my ear, like, "Hey man, what?" That's why I keep like turning, saying like, "What is this? The self destruct? Is it about to explode?" I don't know. Um. So, Paul, let me try and get this out of the. Wait, never mind. We'll deal with it later. I've been playing these games since I was 13 years old. My first experience was with a game called Rifts, which was really big back then, and then after that was AD&D second edition, which had not been out super long by the time I started playing. I mean, it was just a couple of years, and and then the World of Darkness came out a few years after that when I was in high school, and that just landed on my face, vampire and werewolf and all of that, and been doing it ever since.
Yeah, basically those are I think in terms of playing and streaming your two biggest projects. There is there is another project that we will talk a bit later.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah. I've
um,
been very fortunate to kind of get to live both in the arena of vampire and D&D, both as a player and as a storyteller, because I mean doing any one of those things is difficult, and the fact that I basically get to do all four is I've been very lucky in that respect.
yeah. So taking taking that from playing D&D on stream and everything,
Mhm.
how did the Black Dice Society stream start? Was it pitched for you by Wizards of the Coast, or did you just really like Ravenloft and you said, "Hey, do you have something?"
They did come to me. When I for about 2 years, I had a Patreon community where I had an
Hmm.
ongoing vampire session going. I've run about 600 sessions of V5. I've run more V5 than anyone else alive, and the people at D&D knew that. They knew about all the stuff I do with vampire, and I was doing a Dark and Wish at that time, which was the tie-in to the comic book. She's behind. I don't know how cropped I am, but I mean, I got the cover of a Dark and Wish over there on that computer. So they came to me and they were like, "Hey, we want a horror stream. Word is you know how to tell a spooky story and you know a little bit about D&D. Maybe you could do it for us." And I was like, "Yes, yes, I can." Yeah. So yeah, they reached out to me, and then when we were planning it, it was very early in the development of Van Richten's guide, so it wasn't clear, what all was going to be in the book. But we still went into pre-production. I knew the six people who were on the show were the six people I wanted. I tell everybody I call Mark Amir first because I know how much he loves Ravenloft, and everybody else I hit up all at once. All six of them said yes. We were very lucky because when we shoot that show, Thursday, I guess afternoon, really, we go live at 4 o'clock our time. That is the only time out of the entire week, out of all 7 days of the week, that we're all available, is that one time. So it was just was meant to be. Yeah, and it's just been we've been again very fortunate to get to do it.
Yeah, and for me at least, Ravenloft and all of that setting is very very good, and you can take it pretty much anywhere you want. You can make it more of a spooky story, you can make it a ghost slayer story.
Yep.
You have such broad um, a broad theme to take.
Well,
Yeah.
one of the I'm like, hey, product placement. One of the best things about Van Richten's guide is it's got whole chapters about how to tell, a psychological horror story or a
Hmm.
monster horror story or a ghost horror story. So it gives you a lot of tools of how to apply that. And what I wanted to do with it was to show off different kinds of horror, not just the different domains, but the different kind of horror stories that you can tell, from things like, the oncoming zombie hordes in Falkovnia to more of a not being able to trust your own mind and senses type thing in Bloodspur. And yeah, that all of that. It's a really really great setting to tell a different kind of D&D story, that's for sure.
Hmm. Now, since you already did a product placement, I think I need to do one, because the people that are listening to this actually can get something of Ravenloft.
Ooh.
Yeah, they can get the Curse of Strahd, the remastered edition. So for
Oh,
everyone that's watching this live on Rolisboa, just go grab something, and maybe you can get something. I
maybe
don't
Curse
know.
of Strahd is incredible. I will tell you, the
Yes.
Black Dice Society. People ask about this. Black Dice Society is actually a prequel for Curse of Strahd. I'd always envisioned it as kind of the Rogue One to Curse of Strahd Star Wars. So if you haven't played or read Curse of Strahd yet, our stream won't spoil anything for you.
The campaign is amazing. I actually played it, and it's quite a trip, I
Mm-hmm.
would say.
Yep.
Um, but so they obviously came up to you because you are already very knowledgeable about horror stories and everything, which takes me to the topic. Um, since LA by Night has been such a big influence, I think,
Mm-hmm.
for these new licks.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Um, since it has been such a huge influence for these new licks, do you think that there might appear something like, I don't know, a Carl effect, like a Mercer effect, or do you
You know,
think that it's such a different kind of vibe between them?
I mean, yes, in the sense that it already has. But whenever people ask me about this, I always give the same answer. People are like, "Oh, I can't do what Matt Mercer does. I can't do what Jason Carl does. I can't do what Abria does. I can't do what I do." And I'm like, you can't. Really, you can't do what we do, but we can't do what you do. We can't tell your story. We can't bring to life the unique vision that is in your head. So you take from everyone's styles things that you like, and that you can apply, and then take, do your thing and tell your story your way, because only you can. It's a sucker bet trying to duplicate someone else's style. But you can, like, if you like Mercer's voices, okay, you try to do more voices. If you like how subtle in smooth Jason is, great, try and bring that in. If the inflicting massive amounts of emotional trauma like I do, then bring that in. But it's we knew the plan for LA by Night was to introduce vampire to a whole new generation of fans. That there was two big groups out there. There was people that had played in the 90s, like me, and a lot of those people had probably drifted off in between. I always was playing something, but you grew up. but still have happy memories of the of the goth club, LARPing. And there was another group of people who had no idea. That I think Vampire is ubiquitous enough that it's hard to be a tabletop gamer and have never heard of Vampire the Masquerade. But we knew there was this other group that was wholly unaware of this world in the world of darkness, and that we were going to introduce it to them. And what a lot of people don't remember is in December 17, we had done a one-shot. We did a Vampire one-shot for Satine's Chair D20, which was the first time I met Jason, and also the first time I'd ever played a game on stream. And I played a gangrel named Stu, and I went all in. I did the costume, I did the voice, I did all this stuff. And when LA by Night came around, everybody's like, "Oh, are you gonna play Stu again?" And I was like, "No, I'm gonna play a Ventru." And they were like, "Well, but are you sure? Because this character was so cool." And I was like, "Yes, but the Clan of Kings is near and dear to my heart." And I knew I had an opportunity to introduce this new generation of people into what Clan Ventru is and what it could be. In that, even if I'd played that gangrel, and let's just play, I'd played the iconic gangrel, that for all time, Stu was the gangrel, paramount. In the back of my mind, I always would have been like, wish I'd played a Ventru. So, and I will go so far as to tell you, up until the week we launched, another cast member, and I won't say who, was going to do something completely different. And we were talking, and they, same thing. They had a clan they loved, and they had a different clan that they were going to play. And I was like, no, play the one you love. I'm telling you. So yeah, the Monday we went live on a Friday. That Monday, one of the characters was completely redesigned and overhauled ahead of the show.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that's if you should really try to, I think, I you should really try to play something that you really love.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you can, of course. I, I'm not saying that you shouldn't try a bit, but try something. But for example, my first character, I'm very new to Vampire. I started playing like a year and a half, and my first character was a Malkavian,
Mm-hmm.
because not the fish Malk. That's a
Mm-hmm. No
that's
fish marks.
that
Mm-hmm.
that's a topic on itself. And now it was like a clown guy that
Mm-hmm.
turned Malkavian.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
That's terrifying.
yeah, it was like Pierrot, like the mute clown.
Mm-hmm.
So it was
Mm-hmm.
very weird. Some guy walking around with just a mask, not sometimes not saying a thing. And now I decided to become an Amish girl that was from the Ravnos clan.
An Amish girl that's a Ravnos. That's incredible. That is incredible. Yeah, that
So
is awesome.
it was like, yeah, I decided to get away, and now I'm this. And it's very cool because we have a former WWE wrestler, which is a Toreador, and those interactions, it's very funny. Yeah,
That is incredible.
just people just should play what they want, not.
Yeah, I'm again, I'm fortunate that I get to do a lot of this. So at this point now, a lot of my characters are based on what haven't I done, or are a direct counterpoint to the character that I'd played immediately before. Like when we first started LA by Night, I was still playing Chateau on Where Live Frontier, who was, a revolutionary leader of a band of unruly misfits that didn't listen, and did things that were not for their own good, and were facing an overwhelming, unbeatable enemy. And so when we got to LA by Night, I was like, Victor's going to be not that. He's going to be having a good time. I was like, what kind of kindred would be enjoying their unlife? A nightclub promoter. So I had no intention of him seeking any sort of like leadership position until the opportunity to become a baron presented itself. And I am what I am. And, it went where it went. And then during that time, I created Freely, who is the character I play most in D&D, and I Freely is expressly not Victor. Victor's the strategist. Freely is the halfling of action. He's impulsive. Intelligence is his dump stat. He's just doing things. Um, During that time, I did Dimension 20, Pirates of Leviathan, where Marseille the Typhoon was created to be not Freely. Freely is a genuinely good person. Marseille isn't. Freely is, brave and direct. Marseille's a shadowy ganker. It's like that. They're all, point, counterpoint, counterpoint, counterpoint. And I think if I'm blessed to do any more vampire, the next character will very much be not Victor, and go where it goes. So to your point, I think yes, do what seems interesting, do just what speaks to you. And then as you rack up just more time at it, then you can kind of expand your horizons and challenge yourself a little.
Mhm. So you talked a lot about a lot of characters now. Just did you ever notice a bleed between you and your characters, and where do you draw the line on it?
Emotional bleed, no. But what I definitely did notice, and I think this is what you're asking me, is there were certain through lines where there were certain characteristics they all possessed. And I realized that, oh, that's me, like they were, the talkers, the diplomats, the ones that would like jump out front first and do something, because that's who I am. So once I became conscious of that, then I was able to make different conscious choices with those characters. Like again, with you making a conscious decision that Freely is not a tactician. In our show Heroes of the Plains, just this last week, we had to fight Asmodeus. We had to fight the devil, and there was a huge behind the scenes, like real life planning session of them being like, we could do this, we could do that, we could do this, we could do that. I was like, I'm staying out of all of that because that's not who Freely is. You know what I mean? Like, he does not have a plan. If you tell him when at the count of three, push this button, he will. But otherwise, he is just going to react in the moment because my nature is to be thinking it through. With Victor, I was always trying to play the game 5 steps ahead. I was always trying to figure out what's really going on. What is it that he wants? What's the moves I need to make? Um, with the backdrop of what's the story Jason's trying to tell, so I can make sure we're rowing in the same direction.
Mhm.
If Jason is trying to tell the story of us saving this building, and I'm planning how to burn this building to the ground, that's a bad thing. So I want to make sure that like we at least were in alignment of the way that we were trying to go. But yeah, I think that's actually one of the strengths of TTRPGs, and the World of Darkness in particular, is how much it can teach you about yourself, because the World of Darkness is this world. The gas station on the corner is there. The movie theater is there. It's easier for people to slide into that and just put that one layer on, like your clown, which is terrifying. In like, well, now I'm a gangrel, but otherwise it's a world I understand. You can have that in D&D, but there's more layers. That now you got to know what Waterdeep is. You got to be like, well, I'm an orc and I'm a paladin and I'm in this fantastic place, and it's almost like wearing more layers of clothing to be able to get down to the person inside. Whereas vampire, very of one very thin layer over that can get in really like affect and reveal something about yourself.
Yeah, that character of mine was very much the kind of character that I really like to do, which is the guy that suddenly draws something and everyone just goes like, "What the hell is this guy?"
Hmm.
Like I had a for the campaign, Curse of Strahd. My character was an old wizard called Hagrid, which carried a hand cart, and he used it. He used to cast light in it, so you would see along the road a wizard with a light up cart just rolling through in the middle of the night, like, oh, you there? But yeah, just try. Everyone eventually finds that they put something of themselves in their characters.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so you talked about Ventru,
Mm-hmm.
you talked about Gangrel.
Mm-hmm.
So did you just give 2/3 of your top three clans, or
I would not say Gangrel. I would not say Gangrel is a top clan of mine. I was. It was a pre-gen character that I was given, and I just decided to make the most of it, and I enjoyed it. Again, I've been playing this so long and telling so many stories and had to embody so many NPCs. I do really, I love aspects of all of them, but my top two are Ventru and La Sombra.
and the
Clan,
third?
the third, believe it or not, might be Nosferatu. Might be
Nice.
Nosferatu. It's funny because Alex Ward and I have talked about this more than once, that if it turns out vampires were real, because vampires are not real, they're not real at all. But if vampires were real,
Just to make sure
yeah, just
vampires
to
are
make
not
sure,
real.
yeah, vampires are not real. The masquerade must be maintained. Um, if Nosferatu was the only clan, I'd do it. I'd become a Nosferatu tomorrow. If they're like, check this out, you're gonna be hideously ugly, but you're gonna be immortal and have superpowers, I'd be like, I'm like, let's go, let's do it. Yeah, I got enough pictures of me. Let's go. Yeah, I like I with obviously with Ventru, the Clan of Kings, the divine right of rule. I love with La Sombra, ruthlessness, doing whatever it takes to achieve your goals. With Nosferatu, I love the idea that they're like, we're ugly on the outside because we're actually the best on the inside. Like the things that you're denying about yourself, we can't deny. It's right here. You see it. So, them almost having the purest hearts within the realm of the fact that we're all monsters. I think that I like that contradiction in Nosferatu.
Yeah, yeah. We had a Nosferatu. Cain, bless his soul. He was the guy that talked about gargoyles in the middle of Elysium, and when people gave him a stink eye, he was like, "What you looking at?"
Mm-hmm.
Like, so he was such a cool character, just completely aloof all the time. It was,
Mm-hmm.
and they are always like, "Oh, yeah, how can I take care of this?" And very much caring, yeah. And actually, you talked about Alex. Alex, he needs small changes to become a Nosferatu, because of he's already lanky, and in his monsters is. When I saw an episode, a podcast with Liam
Mm-hmm.
O'Brien,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm forgetting the name. Well, they have the podcast that they made, that they were costuming as monsters, and Alex was helping them. And
Oh,
oh
no, didn't he do that with Taliesin?
no, no, it was
Oh,
not Taliesin. It's the
oh, Brian Forrest.
no, it's from
Yeah.
Critical Role. He played.
Fa-
He was playing not.
Oh, Sam.
Um, yes. How can I forget Sam? Come on.
Mm-hmm.
And he was teaching them the ways he moves, when portraying a monster. And damn, that's creepy.
Mm-hmm.
And Jasper
He's very
really
good at
fits
what he
up.
does. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Very good. Um, but yeah, just and and what about D&D? Top three classes for you? Have you ever thought about it?
Uh, yeah. I find, well, I mean, freely, my character I play the most is a bard, warlock, paladin, sorcerer. He's four classes. I find I like the spellcasters the most. I think Bard is number one. If I was forced to pick a subclass, Lore Bard, because I mean a Lore Bard is an entire party in one person. They can do anything. I think second to Bard would be Wizard. You know, gotta appreciate the God Wizard when played properly. Again, a wizard can do anything. And I think third, Cleric. Cleric is an incredibly versatile. You can be, you know, a frontline fighter if you want. You can be a complete backline spell hurler if you want. I think it's a common misconception, especially from people that have been playing the game a long time, that, you know, clerics are nothing more than heal bots. When actually healing in combat is highly inefficient, and you probably shouldn't do it. Yeah, they can do a lot, a lot. Yeah, I think I have a character that I play right now in a show that is a divination wizard too, and a grave cleric, which I really enjoy because he's a reborn. So his character concept is he died and he came back, but he came back changed, and his perception of time and fate is altered now, and that's why he can like see further ahead to when people die and things like that. And it's been a really interesting thing to play. But yeah, Bard, Wizard, Cleric.
Well, I didn't want to say it, but yeah, you heard the man. Bard is the best class. Um, it's the only class that can slay and lay the dragon.
Yep, that is true. That is true. Get them coming and going. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the versatility of them. It's that
Yeah.
you can fit any role and you can do a little bit of everything. And you do a little bit of everything well too. It's not like you just kind of have just a garbage bits and pieces. I'm like, because even though 5th edition has done a really good job of balancing out the classes, and I've played some pure melee classes. I mean, I do have some of the holdover residual trauma from like 3 and 3.5 when a druid's pet, just the druid's pet, was better than a fighter, had more hit points, more attacks, and hit harder than a fighter. It's not like that anymore, but I think part of the like I have like a lot of martial arts training and things like that, so fighting is not unusual to me. So like when I'm playing pretend, I'm like, I can fight right now. I can't throw a fireball, so give me the fireball. That's why I like spellcasters.
Yeah, like parry this, you filthy casual.
Exactly. Click, click, blam. Exactly.
Yeah. So one of the topics that I think it's most interesting in one of the projects that you've been involved with, um, it's of course Into the Motherlands. How long was this project in the making? Was it something? Was it something that would occur naturally, or
No, it's all happened very quickly. I mean, it's been about a year. The show premiered. I think the 1 year anniversary of the show was like a month ago or something. I don't know.
yeah, you are on
Time
the
time makes no sense anymore.
third season, if I recall?
Yeah,
If I
they
saw it correctly.
just wrapped the 3rd season last week.
Yeah.
So yeah, about a year ago, Tanya DePass, Cypher Tier, homie, had been in talks with Twitch about doing some all new original content, and they'd been going back and forth, and they finally arrived at terms, and they were like, cool, you got to deliver this many hours of original content by this date. And she hit me up, and we kind of pulled out the calendar, and it seemed like it was a long time. I want to say it was like August, and we had to do provide a certain amount of content by December. And I started looking at the calendar, and I'm like, well, we kind of got to be done by here, which means we need to start by here, which means at the end of the day, we had about maybe 6 weeks to create the game. It might have been more like 4. It was very, 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 very tight to create a playable game in time for the show to launch. So we hit the ground running very quickly with the development, but we nailed down the premise and the concept very, very quickly, in a matter of days. reached out. I had a lot of connections over at Cortex. Reached out to Cortex about how we might help each other, and they were in. And it all happened very, 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 very quickly. Like there hasn't been a lot of the story of Motherlands that existed before the camera started rolling, and then the show became popular, and there was an appetite for the game. And we were lucky to fund on Kickstarter, and now we're in development for the full scale um, TTRPG experience.
Yeah. Um, was there any reason for going for Cortex, or it was just something that came up in discussions?
At the time, we did not have time to create a whole system. Now that
Okay.
we've got time, we're making something of our own. Like I said, I knew people over Cortex. I knew they were trying to kind of raise awareness of the system, and I was like, you guys need to spread the word about Cortex, and we need a system. And we think yours will work for us. And yeah, it was we were able to help each other basically.
Mhm. So please correct me if I'm wrong on this.
Mhm.
It is labeled, I guess, as Afro punk or
Afrofuturism.
Afrofuturism. That's it.
Hmm.
Um, so do you think that this will can become a bridge between people and people of color and non-people of color, POCs and non-POCs, or in terms of a bridge in the cultural way?
Yeah, I mean both. Hopefully, the reason why we're doing this is, you know, our goal is not to exclude anyone from anything,
Of course.
but as people of color, a lot of times we have either been marginalized in certain communities or left out of them
Mhm.
completely. When a lot of people don't realize that people of color, um, of course, women, and all other kind of marginalized groups have been playing these games from the very beginning. Cyberpunk was created by a black guy, Mike Pondsmith. Like we've always been here in these stories, but usually the way it manifests is, you had the fair, beautiful, smart races, the blonde haired pale elves, and the brutish, powerful orcs, that the dark skinned people, or the treacherous drow, that the there was always a lot of subconscious othering that we wanted to do away with in our story, where and we're by no means the first people to do this, and hopefully not the last. I mean, the Wagadu Chronicles came out last year, and that book is great. It's the same thing. It's a Afro fantasy, which is great. It all comes down to being able to tell stories from the perspective of people of color, where you get to feature them um, in totality, and sometimes that is hero, that is villain, that is in strength, and that is in weakness, that is in heroism, that is in treachery. Because I think in stories it is important that everyone see themselves reflected in narratives, and so you have examples of things that you want to aspire towards and also away from. But you're like, I want to be like that person. I don't want to be like that person. Oh, that's a good example. Ooh, that's a bad example. And you can only have that when every kind of people are prominently on display, which is what we're trying to do with our little game.
Yeah. So one thing that I saw a bit on your press kit, on the press kit for Into the Motherlands, um, it, it's a question that, uh, if you could, I would like a bit of more of a explanation.
Hmm.
As a non POC,
Hmm.
or person of color, what should be, what could be my approach to playing Into the Motherlands on its when it's releasing? Um, is there any recommended reading or watchings for education of ourselves, or it's a
Hey, man,
very
For my money, you are a POC, but you know, no, I don't. It's I think a person that just sits down and opens the book and sees the cultures and the playable races and thinks it's fun and picks something and plays it like any other game is fine by us. You know, it
Mhm.
is not. I mean, obviously there is a social activism component, but it is baked into the design of the game. For instance, there is no attribute system. There is no strength, con, dex, intelligence, right? Your characters are measured by their skills and by their values. What have they learned to do? What's important to them? And that's what defines someone. What are the actions that that individual chooses to take? You know, um, because some of us are judged immediately by appearances, right? And we play with those conventions all the time, down to things like the hyenols. They're a hyaenid species. They look very monstrous, but they're the engineers and philosophers. Like they're the one of the most advanced cultures on the planet. We did that on purpose. The ones that look like monsters aren't. Like things like that are all through it. Even the primary antagonist, the Hapalock, which I created and are near and dear to my heart, are they're like amphibious squids. In their motivation, why they are doing what they're doing, is not evil. It's just their perspective is very, very, very alien in every sense of the word. How they process reality and morality and empathy and things like that is vastly different than everyone else. And that is why they're enemies. You know, they're not enemies. No, the whole a core design principle of this was a world without colonialism. There's plenty of antagonism. There's plenty of conflict, but you and I having a fight over there's only so much drinking water is very different than I deserve to have this drinking water because we're the chosen people. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
no, that's what we're not doing. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Actually, when you talked about the hyena people,
Mm-hmm.
um, currently I'm listening to the audiobook of The Wheel of Time, and
Mm-hmm.
immediately I thought of the Ogier, those like a race of builders that Robert Jordan created, and they are pretty much their description is very close to the Beast on the Beauty and the Beast, and they are very smart and all magical and all of that. So that was the first thing that spiked into my mind. They
Yeah.
are beast-like. They are huge, like 6'9", the shortest one, and yeah, that was the
It's
first image.
I'm 6'9" in life, so I identify with this, which is 2.05 meters for the metric conversion there. Yeah, so I'm
Thanks.
intimately familiar with that reaction. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. It's I got you, buddy. Yeah.
um, yeah. So one question that I feel that I need to make
Mhm.
is, as for us, part of the community, um,
Mhm.
do you have any tips for integrating people that are closet nerds per se, um, and especially people in the as POCs?
I hear this all the time, from people that wanted to play these games all along and didn't know how. Right? Didn't
Mhm.
have, especially since there's been a massive uptick in gatekeeping, which I've talked about a lot. That as some people like get really upset that it's like, ooh, the pretty people are coming into this space, because for a lot of people, geek culture, nerd culture, it was a refuge from things like, well, I don't play sports, but I am really into comic books, or I'm not gonna be the prom queen, but I'm really good at video games. And these things were kind of seen as alternatives. But what's coming out, what was always true, but is becoming more obvious, is that all along all kinds of people liked these things. And to me, the example I always give is like, if you have a candle and you use that to light someone else's candle, you haven't lost anything. Now you got two candles. um and it's important to understand for everybody that there's room at the table for everybody. And that's what makes geek culture important, and not just TTRPGs. I mean, there's room for
Mhm.
everybody on board the Enterprise or inside the TARDIS or inside Avengers Mansion. Like, everybody can love these things, and I think that's what you're I think a lot of this is coming, to tell you the truth, from the MCU. I think you can trace it back to Iron Man, that you had people who grew up with these things and love these things and take these things seriously, told stories like they matter. Jean Favre loves Iron Man and treated Iron Man like Iron Man mattered. And you had a whole group of people who were able to say, like, oh, it's okay that I like this. Oh, okay. It's okay that I like Spider-Man. Oh, great, because I really like Spider-Man. you know, and as people on a social level have kind of been given permission to admit that they can like this stuff and it's all right and that this stuff is cool. I think that's why you've seen this overflow and this explosion into TTRPGs, because it's, once you can admit, well, I like comic books, oh, also I like video games, so those are cool. I also kind of like Dungeons and Dragons and fantasy novels. You know what I mean? Like, all of it's just become okay in which is weird, because that has not been the experience in my lifetime. I grew up during the Satanic Panic. Like, I grew up when
Yeah.
not only was this not cool, it was outright evil. So to have seen the pendulum swing so far the other direction is beautiful, and I'm very glad to be here to participate in it now when I can.
Yeah, fortunately, I'm in a generation that is really accepting of it. Um, yeah, I can't even imagine the satanic panic of,
What's
oh,
wild
you are
though?
summoning demons in my basement.
Yeah, no,
Oh.
that happened. I know it seems laughable now, but it was true. And you know what? To tell you the truth, I think in large part D&D exists like it does because of the Satanic Panic. It became edgy and rebellious. Otherwise, it was just a game. You know what I mean? Like plenty of people play Monopoly, but they don't define themselves, by Monopoly. I think if the Satanic Panic hadn't happened, TTRPGs would not exist like they do today.
Actually, now that I'm thinking, like two of the games that I spend the most time of in tabletop RPGs and Magic the Gathering, they really got after it in the Satanic Panic.
Hmm.
They
Hmm.
were like hand in hand, like the two geek. Uh,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah. It just,
there's even a joke that Gary Gygax created the D4 as caltrops for people when they wanted to barge in his basement, so they step on it.
Yep. Yep. They are it is the cruelest die. Wait, where is mine? It's right here. No, it's hiding from me. Yep. It's the cruelest die.
Yeah, I just have the vampire dice here. They don't have
Hmm.
meat. Yeah. Um.
Again, the vampire dice are in there. They're sleeping in my Ventrue dice box.
Yeah, I have mine somewhere. I haven't opened them, unfortunately. Um. Yeah. So I have a couple of questions from someone that sent us some questions for you.
Hey.
Um. And first, do you consider what you do now your full-time job? If you do you still get enjoyment from it?
I honestly have like 4 or 5 full-time jobs. eh, Creative director at Demiplane, lead developer of Into the Motherlands, streaming. Each individual show, honestly, in its own way, occupies its own thing. I have a currently unannounced thing which is taking up just a ton of my time, and then I write for film and television. In you know, in
You are producing a documentary, if I'm.
Yes, and I'm making a
Yeah.
documentary. Yes, so and we're putting out Electropunk, a graphic novel. So yeah, so I got a bunch of stuff I do, and yes, I do still enjoy it. I know people. It is definitely different when it is work and not just fun. It definitely things take a different flavor, to be sure. But I mean, I used to work primarily in marketing. Like, that was my actual discipline. I was CMO of a couple different companies, and I liked it fine, but it was never my passion. And in the back of my mind, I always knew I was building up somebody else's dream. Anytime you're working for someone else, at the end of the day, you're building somebody else's dream and somebody else's future. I'm not knocking having a job. Like, paychecks are great, but just, in the back of your mind, you got to know you're building somebody else's castle. And I
Mhm.
didn't I didn't want to I didn't want to do that. Um, and so when I finally struck out on my own, I, the universe kind of had to kick me in the backside a little bit, because I was working for a company, tech company, and and I didn't like it. I had some real issues with what they were doing. I'm not gonna name the company, but I had some real issues with what they were doing, and I'd already started to get some traction in the streaming space. I was on Geek and Sundry and stuff at the time, but still very much had a day job. And one day I came in and the whole marketing department got laid off, from the CMO on down. Just everybody. It was like, you're all out on the street. And that was kind of stressful, because I have kids, and I was still actively looking for a new job, but I was also taking advantage of the fact that it's like, well, I got some time on my hands. I can push more and more into the streaming space. And I was actively, still submitting resumes and interviewing, as this other stuff was kind of picking up steam. And then one day I just sort of was like, I can kind of make this happen. And it was necessary that the universe had to kind of kick me out of the nest, because I probably, I can't say never, but it would have been a while before I consciously let go of the sure thing, if that makes sense. Because, again, I got other people
Mhm.
counting on me. But um since then, though, I haven't looked back. And it's, I would caution anybody that is looking to go pro in this area and looking to go full time, not to let go of one branch till you grab a hold of the next one, because it is difficult. It takes time. um and even though success is possible in this space, it is by no means guaranteed. And quite frankly, it is very subjective. It is hard to know what will and won't click, what will and won't resonate. And the bills are due every month, no matter what. So, I would recommend this is primarily a nights and weekends business, at least initially, until you build up where not only are you making a comparable amount in the streaming space, but you've saved up a little bit of money. Because what's going to happen is you'll reach a point that, I'm just making up numbers here, but let's say, you make $5,000 a month at your day job, and your streaming has built up to about $2,000 a month, but you can't put any more time into it. And so you've sort of capped. And then, you realize you kind of got to let go and take the plunge, which case I would say, make sure you save up about 2 or 3 months worth of your living expenses, and then maybe go for it. Maybe make the plunge if you got a platform to build off of. So it can be done. Um, so that's a very long roundabout way of saying, part of the reason why I stay so busy is something is always happening, because there's a lot of delays. Like, I'm working on a movie right now that is, it's been on, it's been off, it's been on, it's been off. Multiple projects going. Some things have come into manifestation now. Other things got postponed. Other things got moved up. But I mean, something's always happening, because it's like, I liken it to cooking a really big meal. That some things are going to be ready here, some things are going to be ready there, and you got to try and pace it out. um but I wouldn't trade it for anything. I have no desire to go back to how things used to be.
Mhm. So one of the other questions is, Vampire the Masquerade, along with other games, require a mature mentality. What do you think it is important for everyone's enjoyment at the table?
From the beginning, this is why session zeros are important. You all need to know the game you're playing, and everybody needs to be playing the same game, which seems obvious, but not always. If you got the one person who only wants the courtly intrigue and Elysium of secrets and betrayal, and another person is the trench coat katana guy that wants to go out and fight werewolves, uh, one of those people is always going to be upset. Like what I think when a game is run well, everyone needs to have a chance to shine. Like in D&D, the sneaky person needs to get a chance to sneak. The talky person needs to get a chance to talk. The hitty person needs to get a chance to hit something. And it's the same thing in Vampire. Everyone needs to have an opportunity to shine. It's just if the Malkavian has stacked up aspects and their whole thing is premonition to get glimpses into the future, then they need to have an opportunity where that happens. If the Tremere is trying to reverse engineer how to make a gargoyle, at least some point of the story they need a chance to make that happen. But the simple answer is, just make sure everyone is there to have the same experience. And if you're going to play and lines and veils and consent and all this stuff are important. If you're planning to tell a story, of a Sabbat ritual with a mass turning, and they're going to come into a situation that's like Silence of the Lambs with flayed humans hanging from the walls, slowly being bled to death in the cauldrons. You need to make sure they're okay with that before you just spring that on them. That we're doing Saw, or we're doing What We Do in the Shadows. I've been very vocal about the fact that while the World of Darkness can be comedic, I don't think it should be. There's plenty of ways to tell funny stories that I don't think that's what this system is meant for. It is a World of Darkness, but in terms of what you do at your table, it can be done. And of course, you do what you want at your table, as long as everyone is in agreement that that's the thing we're doing.
And not being in agreement, it's where things get really rough for everyone, especially if there is a group of friends
Yep.
that usually plays together and something is amiss.
Yep.
And like, okay, let's just do a quick PSA.
Hmm?
If you are playing with your regular group of friends, still do the lines and veils, because
Yep.
sometimes, because, oh, I know my friends. You should do the lines and veils. That's how groups break
Yep.
up. That's how people get really upset and hurt, and
Yep.
things turn really sour quickly.
Well, yeah, absolutely, 100%. Because if we're just hanging out, I may never tell you of something that actually bothers me. Like I may never say it out loud. And also, things can emerge during play that bothers someone that they didn't know would bother them. That's what I think people don't take that into account. That you can get into a situation and a person gets very uncomfortable in a way that they themselves did not predict they would. They still have to be able to express that and have that honored. And the only way to honor that is, of course, to stop the scene and change, pause if you need
X
to, or
card.
just, yeah, or just shift. Yeah. I will tell you, though, something I've gotten more accustomed to. The X card's important, but especially now, even with heads and boxes, is to have a digital X card if it's to text or do something else, because sometimes people are embarrassed to show the X card. you know they're embarrassed to say this is making me uncomfortable, and then that's worse because now they're uncomfortable with the added layer of embarrassment. So maybe you all have a system of being able to be like, just text X card or something, where they can be like, and then the
Yeah,
storyteller can adjust appropriately. Yeah, don't get me wrong, X cards are great, but even a more anonymous system I found has been very useful.
yeah, I would say so. Yeah, that part of being embarrassed about, oh, I don't want to say it, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that can be, well, it's, you don't want to be the pussy on the table. Yeah, that really makes sense. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised that there isn't anyone that made like a phone application for just register a table, and if someone isn't comfortable, just boop it in There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah. So I have one question that I always make when I'm interviewing someone,
Mm-hmm.
um, and sometimes it's a cheeky question.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, what media, what movie, book, series, whatever you want to say, um, are you currently watching, consuming, and that you think that everyone should be consuming as well?
Well,
LA by Night. LA by Night doesn't
LA by
count, by
Night,
the
right?
way.
No, no, man, that super counts. I'm just starting to get into Brian Sanderson because I got a friend of mine that swears by Brian Sanderson. So, well, you can't see these, but I just bought his books. I haven't started yet. Um, I think the Star Wars expanded universe stuff, Clone Wars, Rebels, um, the Mandalorian, those things, the ways they have fleshed out and expanded that universe and brought it to life in such a fulfilling way. I think that if I had to pick just one thing, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Also,
Brandon,
LA by Night and the Black Dice Society.
just saying.
Just saying, product placement.
uh, yeah. Um, Actually, Brandon Sanderson is
I'm like,
probably
I'm
one
like,
of
I'm
the.
like, what? Huh?
Oh,
Yep.
come on!
Yep.
You're making everyone jealous.
Yeah.
The whole audience is probably just filled with jealousy. Um, yeah. Brandon Sanderson. Actually, I think it's probably one of the authors that I still haven't read anything about it. Even though The Wheel of Time, which by the way is getting an adaptation on Amazon Prime, which is
Mm-hmm.
very pristine. Um, he actually finished the work from Robert Jordan, his
Mm-hmm.
last two books after he died. So yeah, he has talent, man. He has talent. He
Mm-hmm.
just keeps putting out books like hotcakes.
I mean,
Um,
that's what you have to. Anybody that has listened to a lot of these, I constantly rant about how George R. R. Martin is dead to me. And the number one reason why is that he has not finished the story and will not finish the story. He's never going to finish that story. And you have an obligation, a moral obligation to the fans to finish it to the best of your ability. Yeah. And so I always appreciate authors that are prolific and people that finish the story. Because again, good, bad, or indifferent, you can argue about the ending, but at least you have an ending. Like Battlestar Galactica, it's the ending's divisive, but it ends. You're like, this is what happens. And then you can go where you go with it. So yeah, I agree. I
yeah,
know we're late into this, so I'm not going to go into my full George R. R. Martin rant, but that's the TLDR of it.
yeah. You can add Patrick Rothfuss to that.
Here's the only reason why I'm so much kinder to Patrick Rothfuss is I know him and he's a friend. So that's why it goes in a different box. Yeah, but
Yeah,
it's yeah, yep. But I very much get the sentiment. At least
yeah.
Pat's not out here writing freaking cookbooks and all this other stuff nobody asked for.
At least that.
Yeah. At least that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anything you want to plug in, just as a finisher, for anyone that doesn't know, I don't know how. Um,
Thank you, too kind. Yeah, follow me on the tweetagrams at bdave walters. My DMs are open if you have any questions. Don't come and ask me any silly stuff. I will publicly make fun of you if you try and start smoke with me. But if you just have questions and want to talk through things, DMs are open at bdave walters. And
like this interview started with a Twitter DM. Just
yeah, happy to do it. And thank you for having me. Beyond that, just if you're thinking about playing games, if you're thinking about getting started in streaming, do it. Get your friends together, turn on a camera, and make some memories. You don't have to spend a ton of money. Just do get a good mic because sound quality is the most important thing. So at least have like a Blue Yeti or something and roll with it. Have a good time. And when you start, you'll be terrible at it. And just try and get better. and continue to hone your craft and enjoy the process. That's it. That's all you got to do.
Yeah, I actually bought a mic because of these interviews. Because earlier this week, I interviewed Drew Gaska.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one responsible for the Alien canon. So, and interviewing you, so I was like, I should get a mic.
So much so when we first started, you were on the wrong mic, and I was like, "Bro, you're on the wrong mic." I was like, I know
Yes.
that's not it." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay, yeah, that's I get you."
Mhm.
And you know why sound is the most important thing is most people mom watch this kind of content and
Oh,
TTRPGs and
yeah.
stuff. They have it on in the background. Like very rarely does a person sit and stop what they're doing and look at the screen for 2 or 3 hours. So that's why sound is most important.
And at 1.5 speed most of the time, just to make
A
sure
lot of
that they
times, yep.
binge. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey man,
So,
zone of safety. Consume the content however you like. Yeah, but that's it. That's my parting thought.
yeah. So once again, thank you for this interview. It was amazing, and I, yeah, thank you again. It is. I hope that someday you can come to Portugal and have a live interview with
Yeah,
us. Um,
I've never been to Portugal. I've been over to Europe a couple of times, but never Portugal. So yeah. Mhm.
yeah, let's hope that in the future we are able to get you here,
Love
and
to
you
do
can
it.
enjoy the sun. You can enjoy
Exactly.
the sunny weather and everything. Yeah. So
We'll count it down. Hopefully the apocalypse passes soon and like global
yeah.
travel is a thing. I'm supposed to go to England 3 times next year for D&D in a castle, and I'm sort of like, I don't know. Okay, we'll find out. We'll see. So
Yeah.
yep.
So thanks again. Thank you everyone that's watching in Rolisboa. And see you next time.